It's SNL, a look back at Saturday Night Live with your hosts, Matt and Keith. Brought to you by Lion's Den Audio Theater. Like and subscribe to Lion's Den Audio Theater for more Lion's Den goodness. And here are your hosts, Keith and Matt.
Saturday Night Live, episode 12 with host Dick Cavett. Originally aired on January 31st, 1976. And today it's me, Keith, and I'm joined by Matt. How you doing tonight, Matt?
Hi, Keith. Feeling good. Great to be back on Saturday night.
We've got some housekeeping to take care of. First off, this is episode 12. We did record this originally in June, and then we had a data loss where we lost episodes 11 through 14. So 11 was recovered, 13 was recovered. However, 12 and 14 we're having to re-record. So yeah, that's what we're doing here tonight.
However, unfortunately, NBC did not lose episode 12 from the archives.
Yeah, you hear about all these great things that were scrubbed over by taping over old tapes, and I don't know how sad a lot of people would be if a couple of these were lost to Saturday Night Live archives. The bigger note is it's been a few months, and in that time, Dee has decided to go off and pursue some other artistic ventures. Still a big friend of the show, still a friend to us, but going forward, Matt and I will be regular features of the show as we have been, and we'll be having a third person sitting in. Sometimes that might even be Dee. As well, Dee is going to contribute some things to us from time to time. So we'll see how the future goes there, but best wishes from us to Dee going forward.
Absolutely. And talk about mirroring the product. Our first featured player, but not regular cast member. Gosh.
So, in the meantime, we have been in touch with some pretty cool cats who are going to come on and join us. And whether or not we continue with the revolving third person, or if we have regular third persons or semi-regulars, we're not sure how that's going to go yet.
Joe Piscopo, probably available.
Maybe so. I'm sure there's somebody on staff that's just, throughout the whole almost 50-year run of the show who would like to come on and maybe tell us some things they've been thinking about.
Even just some disgruntled PA from like the 80s.
So Dick Cavett, you know a bit about Dick Cavett, Matt. I know we covered it last time, but just to give the listeners a very quick overview. Dick Cavett's a well-known and respected talk show host. Cavett was born in 1936. He'd been an actor, a writer, and worked a lot of different places in TV before getting the first of his many shows called The Dick Cavett Show. The Dick Cavett talk show ran from 68 to 74. He was usually scheduled against Johnny Carson and Merv Griffin. He usually got creamed, but he kind of had the cult audience. He had an interesting way of doing it. A lot of the time it was one issue, one guest for the whole show. And from what I've seen of Dick Cavett from the era, it's very interesting, very heavy talk, smart stuff. It's not just waka jokes the whole time. He sort of, though he didn't have the long runs of the Carsons and the like, the intellectuals of the country really liked Cavett. And Cavett stuck around a bit doing different things. And to this day, he's still commenting on his time and what he did on television and has certainly played a role in a lot of different things. But at this point in time, when he hosted Saturday Night Live, it was shortly after his big talk show had been canceled. And he was taking a step away and being a host. And apparently had a great time here. So what's your knowledge of Dick Cavett up to this point, Matt?
Only that he was a talk show host and a successful one. I had no idea, however, that he was opposite Carson and Griffin. That is a slapping around indeed. I can't imagine that worked out well because, as you said, it's not the Waka Waka, which is, I'll kick Jay Leno at any opportunity. What a terrible show that was, but it was always the late night leader in like ratings and things like that. So, and I'm not saying that Jay Leno was on the level of Carson or Griffin. Anyway, I digress. Something about how you were describing it reminded me of the Tom Snyder show in the 90s with the one guest format and sometimes just taking a whole episode to go through something that was a little more serious or involved than his contemporary late night counterparts. And I get that vibe from Dick Cavett as well. I like them both. I like that style of late night talk show. I think it's a great alternative.
There's just this format now where people expect, the three guests, and Carson did it. Carson made a lot of money, so that's what the talk shows became. I think the UK still holds true to the old style. There are some of those shows that do still have the 1 hour, one guest. It's still very much alive on radio. The last probably example of this that was sort of readily available would have been Charlie Rose, I would think.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one at all. I know, I think my grandma liked it.
It's a very good show. Cavett's the musical guest, is Jimmy Cliff, and we'll talk about Jimmy Cliff when we get there. And some other people appearing tonight are Marshall Efron and Allen Peterson, and we'll talk about them as well when they come up. So the show starts with Chevy Chase in his dressing room, surrounded by several women. He's called to the stage, and on the way to the stage, he runs into Garrett Morris. Chevy Chase tells Garrett Morris that his back is sore, and he's sad that Garrett isn't on the show so much. Morris says that's great, he just likes working on the show. Chase heads out to the stage, and Morris has a Chevy Chase voodoo doll, and he starts doing some voodoo on him and sticking some pins in his back. And as he does this, Chevy, who's now sitting on a stool, starts getting these weird pains. And finally, Garrett throws the voodoo doll against the wall, and Chevy, who's in the middle of singing The Way You Wear Your Hat, falls off the stool into the audience. Garrett was great, but this was kind of whatever.
Yeah, it's this typical fall open. I mean, it's just another vehicle to get there. There was something very real life about this. I feel like that conversation happened between them at some point. Like, sorry, you're not on the show much this week. Oh, it's okay. Yeah. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure.
And I loved Chevy sitting with all the ladies in his dressing room.
I think a lot of them were. Rosie Schuster was there, and I'm pretty sure Ann Beats was as well. I think it was kind of the writing team and other female crew members. They're still at a stage where they're not really pulling in extras unless they absolutely have to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then we go to Dick Cavett monologue. I wrote here, it's a very Dick Cavett-like monologue. I don't know if he wrote it, but it's definitely delivered in his kind of intellectual way. I could definitely see the influence that Cavett had on the likes of Letterman and Conan. He talks about how he's seen as an intellectual, but has a much more lowbrow humor. And he does the old bit where you shoot a gun in the air, and then it's usually a duck that falls down. In this case, it's a inflatable cow. Nice fresh take on an old bit. That being said, this was kind of it was Dick Cavett, but it didn't, and it was good, well done, but it didn't have the energy I like in a monologue. That being said, it's kind of, to me, the first true Saturday Night Live monologue.
Yeah, I could see why you'd say that. He was, I did find him very, it sounds silly, he was very Dick Cavett in it. My personal favorite part is when he jokingly asked the audience if they had any questions. I also thought it would have been really funny if when he shot the gun up in the air, if instead of a cow, it was like Chevy Chase or Belushi or like one of the cast.
I'm sure Belushi, either one of them would have definitely done the fall. So then we go to the first sketch. It's Guns and Alcohol. So Jane Curtin is on the phone talking about her new boyfriend that she's met up with since the death of her husband. And Chevy Chase comes in fresh from duck hunting. As he enters the door, his gun goes off. Chase kills Curtin's dog by accident. Jane Curtin kind of laughs it off and says he was close to 7. And that's all right. Then Belushi comes home as her son, and Chevy shoots him. Lorraine Newman as the daughter comes in, and Chevy accidentally shoots her. And what's going on here is Jane Curtin is talking about the relatively new book that came out at that point called Total Woman, written by Maribel Morgan. Chevy shoots her. And really this whole thing is a commentary on this book, Total Woman, which basically said women should turn over everything, all their hopes and dreams and everything, turn it all over to get the perfect man. And so it's a commentary on that real life book.
Not a very progressive stance even for then.
No, not at all. I don't even know if it was progressive for like 1876. It was really weird. So no surprise that the writers took the piss out of this book. The sketch for me, I just didn't find it funny. It was just silly. So, and not being overly knowing that the book exists, but not having ever read it or had any interest in reading it, it didn't really speak to me.
No, nor I. I also thought it was miscast. I didn't buy Jane giving me like desperate single mom vibes. this would have been better for Lorraine or Gilda. And I also think Chevy's good. I like him, but I felt like that needed something a little goofier. Like if Belushi did it, in his wild-eyed way. I just think that would have been funnier. So yeah, there's not a lot of jokes there. I mean, it's only one joke, but I also thought it was miscast.
Definitely not first sketch of the night material at all.
No.
Next up, we have our first kind of commercial. It's Dick Cavett's School of Auto Refinishing and Upholstering. And this is the first in a series of sketches that happen where Dick Cavett talks about the businesses he set up, these correspondence schools where people can learn from Dick Cavett things you would never expect Dick Cavett to be able to teach. This was funny. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like this is some good casting. Not that he's not the star of the show, but he's a great shill because he shouldn't be a shill. He's too articulate. He's too well spoken. But here he is hawking correspondence courses on community television. I thought it was great, and I thought he was really good in it. He can be a funny guy with the right material, I'm sure.
Exactly, yeah. And this is the right material for that, yeah. Chiron comes up and a male audience member says he never saw Deep Throat.
He learned it by rote.
He must have been one of the only young men in 1970s America that didn't see Deep Throat.
Especially in New York, where you have like 42nd Street and all those sleaze theaters. Like, it must have been everywhere.
Our first musical performance tonight is Jimmy Cliff's The Harder They Come. This is a kind of a reggae ska song. I absolutely loved it. Progressive message that really gelled with the show. It sounded great. He's a super talented singer. And it goes into that sort of 1970s red camera flares, which really worked well. The song is originally from a 1972 movie of the same name that Cliff starred in.
I just don't like the musical guests in season 1. I haven't really liked any of them. I've been slightly entertained by obviously talented people. But as far as my personal preferences go, the show has not yet given me something that I latch on to. It's there for my entertainment. But yeah, I don't dig the music in this first season.
For some reason, I was watching this one and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And we've been at odds about some music throughout. But this one, I don't know if it was the lyrics or just the performance, but I kind of got the vibe this is getting closer to what you mean or what you've been looking for. I could be wrong.
I don't want to say it's not cool because it's cool for the time, but like it's not my perception of cool. Like, unfortunately, the show's going to get really bad in the early 80s. But what doesn't get really bad in the early 80s is that for whatever reason, as much as the comedy will begin to suffer, whoever's booking the talent musically in the early 80s does a cracking job. I really feel it's like such a complete turnaround from these kind of a little more generic, I'm using these words really loosely, stuff that's just, it's not edgy enough yet for me, the music. And this period of musical guest just doesn't do it for me because I just find it a little too radio friendly is not quite what I mean, but I don't know. It's a little too late 70s top 40 for my liking.
Next up, we go to John Belushi as Lowell Brock, a tax service provider from H&L Brock, and H&L Brock will cheat for you. They'll give you a bogus receipt form. I really like Belushi as this Lowell Brock character. This is quite funny, sleazy tax guy.
I've been pretty hard on Belushi in past episodes. He does grow on me the more I watch him. I thought this was very well done by him. I cracked up when he opened that receipt book and started pointing blindly at the receipts. That was a big highlight for me.
Oddly enough, though, these sketches were cut from reruns. Yeah.
What do you think's up with that? Just time?
I don't know. Is it too close to H&R Block? Probably time, to be honest. This episode actually it did run long, and I'll mention something a little later on that one.
Gosh, should have lost that first sketch with Chevy and Jane with the shotgun, or the rifle, rather.
So we had the weekend update. It begins with a BJ joke on the phone.
Casual roadhead jokes from Chevy Chase.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. A really funny joke I enjoyed where the limits on campaign spending had dropped. So Nelson Rockefeller, Norman Lear, the Shah of Iran, and Hugh Hefner have all decided to enter the race. There's a picture of Fidel Castro holding two fingers in the air, and Chevy says CIA has developed an exploding cigar to kill Castro. There are some bad drawings of the Patty Hearst trial, while Chase narrates what was happening. The famous Professor Backwards joke, where Professor Backwards was killed and his cries of pleh were ignored. Francisco Franco is still dead. There are individual pieces of canned tuna being found in the ocean. And Newman is in Angola with a British mercenary played by Dan Aykroyd, and they just wind up getting it on.
As far as Weekend Update goes, one thing I don't like is
when Chevy Chase does his little nasal commentaries.
I do not dig those. I mean, his joke at the top of the sketch on the phone was that was laugh out loud funny, and everything else just kind of petered off into kind of dated topical humor for the most part at this stage.
Yeah. We go to a commercial break, which is the re-airing of the Felina cat food commercial, which was one of my favorites, where the woman is, they make 2 casseroles, one with expensive tuna and one with cat food, and they give it to some random woman to see if she can tell the difference. And,
I also love that.
That's a great one. Second half of Weekend Update. So we have another Emily Litella editorial. This one is about the Eagle Rights Amendment. It's been a while since I rewatched this and haven't seen Emily lately. One thing I did notice about Emily Litella in this episode is in this one there were jokes within the joke. It was really funny. She said, "I understand the eagle is a national symbol, but I wouldn't want to sit next to one on a bus." Little things like that did give me the chuckle. So as far as Emily Litella, who I am getting sick of, I'm going to give this one a pass because it did make me laugh a few times.
Yeah, and I think that's sub jokes are like when you're just beating the same character's basic joke into the ground. Those are absolutely necessary, I think, if you're going to bother running with it, because otherwise, you're just kind of sitting around waiting for the joke.
And then again, in lieu of Garrett Morris's service to the hard of hearing, we have Tom Schiller, who delivers his lines as Ricky Ricardo for Lucy fans. Tom Schiller does a great Desi Arnaz impression.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I mean, you know how much I like the Garrett Morris stuff, but he did pretty good.
Then we go to Dick Cavett's School of Hydroplaning and Hovercrafting, another great little correspondence school ad from Cavett.
His delivery on them is just perfect for me. Like, this is my style of comedy. The smooth talking, smarter than you scumbag, but he doesn't look like a scumbag and he doesn't sound like a scumbag. So why wouldn't you believe him?
Yeah,
he nails it.
Then we go to Our Town. It's Dick Cavett playing the stage manager in a parody of Thornton Wilder's play Our Town. Our Town was set in a small town. It was all very folksy. However, in this case, the town is New York City. So Cavett is kind of talking about the tattoo parlor and the dirty bookshop and a woman getting murdered as he delivers his lines. This was well written. I think Cavett's delivery was a little sloppy and a little long. I'd love to see Cavett actually have played the stage manager in the original Our Town. There's some jokes in this that wouldn't fly well today. Maybe in the hands of a different actor, this might have worked better, but it just felt long to me.
I agree. It did seem a little long, and I'm not familiar with Old Town at all.
Okay, yeah.
So I was just kind of coasting through this sketch, hoping Dick would get me through it, and Dick let me down a little.
Then we're off to Jimmy Cliff's Many Rivers to Cross. My goodness, he had great power and control of the song. He seemed to be completely exhausted when it was done. This one has a bit of a different tone from the first one. It was equally good. I really enjoyed this. He wrote this when he was 21, and it charted in the UK and New Zealand. I think he actually may have written it when he was living in the UK. Really like this song. I thought it was well done. I've heard different versions by different people over the years too, but you're the music guy. What are you thinking?
I mean, I guess I don't have anything to add. I might not have said regarding the first segment. I know he's talented, you can tell, and I can certainly acknowledge that. I know Adele is a very talented singer. I'm not buying either CD, though.
Then we go to the Dick Cavett Lookalike Contest, which was won by a gentleman by the name of Dwayne Christensen. And character actor, voice actor Marshall Efron comes out. Now, Cavett is a very thin, small, redheaded man. And Dwayne Christensen is a heavy-set man with black hair and a black mustache. They look absolutely nothing alike. Cavett points that out several times, but Christensen / Efron doesn't seem to go along with him. And a nice little joke is at the bottom of the screen they put up a chyron so you can tell the two apart. This was short and sweet. It was funny. I mean, this joke has been done 1,000 times since, but it worked well. I liked it.
Yeah, and I like this is the Dick I like. With the he's agog at like with the situation, and that's another. He would have been good in. I wish he'd done some films, some comedy films. I guess that's probably why I like him. I see a lot of this young Dick Cavett is a real up and comer, is what I'm trying to say. A lot of opportunities for this kid.
He was in Beetlejuice.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I don't remember him in Beetlejuice. I've been meaning to watch Beetlejuice again anyway.
Always worth a watch. Our next one is a Gary Weiss film. Gary Weiss is on a roll with us. This one is really interesting. It's a tailor and a plastic surgeon, and it's cutting back between the two, and each of them are discussing how they could change the other within their expertise. So the Taylor is talking about how he would change the plastic surgeon's suit, and the plastic surgeon is talking about what he would do to make the tailor look younger and more vibrant or more alive. I really enjoyed this. It wasn't overly funny, but my goodness, what a clever idea.
His movies, his films, his short films here on Saturday Night Live, I definitely get the impression that they're not supposed to be ha-ha funny, but they are supposed to be strange slice of life. And gosh, they're just so really well done. I would like more of this outside of Saturday Night Live, where he had a little more freedom. Yeah, I'm on record. I've always enjoyed his films. Another young up-and-comer for the kids to watch out for.
Our next segment is Jane Curtin as Betty Ford hosting the show Dance to the Nation. So these are viewer questions, which are being read by Chevy Chase, are read to Betty Ford, First Lady, as she dances around. As she dances, she answers questions from viewers. Now, the questions are very similar to her own personal situation, and she panics and dances off the stage when she's asked by a woman about how to deal with her incompetent husband who grew to be a successful person. This is notable as it's the first time the First Lady was parodied on Saturday Night Live. I thought this was not great. It's good to see Jane Curtin spreading her wings a little bit and being a little bigger than just the straight person, and I thought she did a good job there.
I do like Jane. I believe I've already said she's my favorite of the early female cast members. I just generally find she has this professional air about her. Gilda is, she's so goofy, and Lorraine seems kind of chaotic, and Jane just seems to be, I guess, mirroring reality. She seems to be the one that has it together. But yeah, that's a neat trivia about the First Lady. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so then we go to another H&L Brock. Belushi gives 2 more tips as to why H&L Brock is a good choice for taxes. Tip number 3, they pay off IRS officials. Pretty unabashed there. And number 4, the H&L Brock deduction. This is done by a senator who gives a cut to people who use H&L Brock. During this one, or maybe during the third one, I'm watching it and saying, how many of these high level income tax service providers, accountants and whatnot, how many of these are actually legitimate things that are done at the super high level of the world, the 1%ers, if you will?
Oh, I certainly believe that entirely. Was this also, out of curiosity, was this also cut from reruns? Were all of them removed?
I believe so, yeah, all 3 H&L Brocks. I mean, I have the DVD collection, so I'm seeing them. So I'm not sure exactly what happened during reruns, or if it was just certain affiliates cut it or whatever, but there is a note that these didn't air in reruns.
Interesting. But you're certainly right. Truth in the humor. Absolutely.
Yeah. Then we go to Looks at Books, and Chevy hosts Dick the Stick Cavett, who is a Nebraska pimp. He has one employee, Marianne, who works the whole state. Now, Marianne's a far-out girl who doesn't wear a bra, but she won't go all the way. It was funny. It's just small-town pimpery, I guess. I was more distracted and annoyed by the fact that Chevy was hosting Looks at Books, which Jane Curtin has done the whole time through.
Yeah, not a fan of that either. And I really think to take Dick Cavett and do this, you really only get one shot at this joke, I think. It's like that episode of King of the Hill where Hank Hill became a pimp. When Hank Hill was walking around with that hat, this is the vibe I got from that. I thought, I mean, Dick did okay. I wish it was a little funnier. Yeah, like I said, I think you get one shot at this joke. Dick did fine. I didn't think the jokes were there.
No, it was, it was touch long, but really the take home for me was just Chevy doing this again. Like, didn't the opening of the show feature Garrett saying he didn't have much to do on the show? You know what I mean? Like, why is Chevy also doing this?
He will go on to have quite a bad reputation, as we know.
I've not been as positive on Chevy as you and D. Yeah, it's like episode 14, I think. It hits the wall for me, and we'll get there.
He didn't need to be here. He didn't need to be in a couple of the sketches. He shouldn't have been the hunter, and he shouldn't have been the host here.
Exactly. No, for sure. We then go to a Chiron. It's a elderly woman, or actually an elderly couple, who don't understand young people today, and they get a kick out of that. These
are just real people, right, that they flash on the screen.
Yeah, for sure. Just regular audience members, yeah. I mean, you never know. They could be a friend of the crew, or, I know early on in an episode, we wondered if they got permission first or got a waiver afterwards, but it wouldn't matter. It's already gone out in live TV. So, yeah.
Right. I wonder if they're flashing these during the dress rehearsal on different audience members.
I'm not sure. That's a good question. Our next performance is a third one from Jimmy Cliff. It's Wajaka Man. This one is a more traditional reggae sound to it. This wasn't bad. It didn't hit me the way the other two were. It was just interesting that Cliff got three performances on this. That's rare. Unless you're Paul Simon.
I didn't like it. I really think there should just be two songs. And it's easy for me to say because I grew up with two songs. It's always been two songs. So that that's what's just embedded in my brain is two songs. But just because that's true doesn't mean it's also not the best way. I think three songs is too many songs, and I think they realize that too, and I think that's why there is now two.
Our next segment is another H&L Brock. Brock's fifth tax tip as to why you should use H&L Brock. They have close ties to the underworld. Really like that. And what we see at the end of the sketch is kind of funny too. Throughout the sketch, Lorne Michaels crawled out and tied John Belushi's shoes together, and he can be seen crawling away as the camera pans out. Some versions can actually hear Belushi saying "What the fuck" as he realizes his shoes have been tied together. This was it's kind of weird. I don't, and the audience did see Lorne. I rewatching it, I could tell the audience is laughing as the timing would have been such that Michaels is crawling out.
You say there's a version where you can hear the F-bomb. What's up with that? Where are these versions? Like, was it just originally live or on some VHS? Yeah. Like, how did that work?
Yeah, it was originally live, and I think it was cut out of the reruns.
Okay. But is that why they cut them all out, maybe? Because they ended with a curse and they were just like, fuck it, kill them all?
Yeah, that'd be weird. I mean, that's the tail end of this sketch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would be weird. That's probably not right.
Our next bit is the home movies. It's by someone named Harry McDivitt, and it's called The Apple Follies. And it's a bunch of male apples. It's stop motion. Male apples going to a strip show with female apples taking off their peels. And the show is broken up by the plum cops. This was cute. It was fun. It's probably exactly what they wanted when they asked for home movies.
Yeah, it's pretty cute. I'll take this all day over any Muppet sketches.
For sure. And we didn't have any Muppets this time.
I know. It was a real treat.
And the final major segment features Alan Peterson. And this was something when we first recorded this episode, I mentioned that I could find absolutely nothing about Alan Peterson on the internet. And 3 months later, after still looking and searching, I can't find anything. What I did notice, though, this time during his introduction, Cavett said it was his television debut, and that they were exploring unique ways of casting. So whether or not they found this person in a drag show or a strip club or a community theater, we have no idea. So Peterson gets up and sings "I Gotta Be Me," and eventually strips out of a construction worker's costume into women's underwear and with a blonde wig. This was probably really, really funny at the time. The live audience seemed to love it. It's not particularly funny today, and not just politically, but this sort of thing is also something that has been done over and over again.
Indeed, and I also just don't think it's the kind of thing. I like it. It was, again, because you mentioned the live audience really enjoyed it. I don't think it translates well on television either. There's no energy, and there's no sense of that. I don't want to say burlesque, but you're not getting the vibes that I think are really necessary to enjoy this segment.
Yeah, and I mean, it's as soon as I heard I Gotta Be Me, I kind of thought, well, he's going to be him somehow, and I think that's where we're going. So as I mentioned, the H&L Brock sketches were cut, and there's also a few places that suggest a drug kingpin sketch was cut. And whether that was aired originally and was cut from the reruns or just not on the DVD, or I could find no record of this sketch, so I wonder if it was something that may have made dress rehearsal and then was later cut, but it's another sketch that may be out there somewhere.
Lost in the annals of time somewhere. It's so fascinating to me sometimes that we just lose things that were on like major network televisions. But I guess, I mean, shit happens. We kind of were talking about it at the top of the episode. Remember the Universal Music Fire where like a bunch of masters just burned? And they were like, well, we just don't have those anymore. Like, that's crazy that to me that shit like that can happen. And yes, or you not being able to find Allison's information online. Some things really do just get lost.
And I mean, I'm a fan of silent films, and I still hope that there's a vault somewhere that people just forgot about that has, decades and decades of work sitting in it, but not likely, sadly. So we'll just jump into our epilogue here. Dick Cavett, still around, still in show business. He's an occasional guest on things and an author. He became one of the early faces of struggling with bipolar disorder for celebrities. He did a lot of awareness and whatnot. I regard him now as a very well-respected, yet seldom seen elder statesman on television. And we will see Dick Cavett again in the future.
Really? Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I enjoyed his time here. Yeah, like I said right before we started recording, I just like the cut of his jib. There's something about him that I just find appealing.
Our musical guest, Jimmy Cliff, continued to have a very active career, collaborating with a lot of A-listers. His last release was in 2012 and eventually got inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2010. Still working, I believe.
Keep on trucking, Jimmy.
Marshall Efron, the Dick Cavett lookalike. He appeared in film, did some minor character stuff, and some voice work on some high-profile projects until about 2009, and then he died in 2019 at 81. This is his only appearance on the show, but it was a fun one. Harry McDivitt, who did the Apple Follies, some acting bits here and there, but I can't find much about this gentleman. Hopefully there's a whole bunch of home movies that Harry McDivitt made sitting in a vault somewhere. Not Universal.
He didn't make them with Bob Crane.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That's somebody who I expect to host, and I don't think he does, but he might be. Is he deceased by the? No, he's not dead yet. So I guess his star had fallen by this point, though. And finally, Alan Peterson. I can find nothing on this person, nothing concrete. I would say possibly a short career, maybe you've changed names.
Is it possible, is there, and again, I'm coming in knowing nothing, so I'm sorry if this is a stupid question, but is it possible that he was just like Chevy's Coke dealer and they put him on the air?
No, I don't get the vibe. I sort of think maybe drag performer or something like that. I mean, that's possible, but I did see his name elsewhere, like on other shows too. And it's the type of thing that as someone who likes to know that sort of stuff, it's driving me absolutely bonkers. So, if you're out there, Al, let us know how you're doing. It's just weird for someone to appear on Saturday Night Live with no obvious connection and then to disappear into the ether. I mean, this is not a sleep, like this show is a hit right now. It's not, like people are watching it. It's cool shit. So it is weird. And as I mentioned, this episode originally ran very long, so the goodbyes were cut. And another thing that happened in the reruns is they actually used the goodbyes from another Dick Cavett episode.
Oh my goodness.
Dick Cavett goes back to say goodbye, and Dana Carvey's standing there. So let's go into our awards and thoughts. The music for me was very strong, and in some ways the best element of the show for me. 3 were good, but the first 2 songs, The Harder They Come and Many Rivers to Cross, were both awesome songs. I really enjoyed them.
I mean, I'm not trying to continue to kick Jimmy. It's just not for me. Talented guy. But I mean, if I were to watch this episode again in the future, and God willing, I will never have to watch this episode again. But if I did, I'd skip those parts and just give him a nod. Keep on trucking, Jimmy.
And the host, Dick Cavett, was used as well as Dick Cavett could be at this stage of the cast.
Why didn't they have him do a talk show?
Yeah, they didn't have him host anything, eh?
Yeah, like that seems like it writes itself. You know, take it. Maybe he interviews wacky characters that are increasingly over the top, or maybe his guests are perfectly normal and he becomes more and more erratic. It just seems like a missed opportunity.
Or maybe it's something he assisted not to do. You know, he was out of the game at that point, right?
Fair, yeah.
He
was canceled. No, it wasn't. You said his show was just canceled.
Yeah. He was teaching hydroplaning and upholstering. So the worst bit for you tonight, Matt? The worst sketch or whatever?
I really didn't like that Chevy Chase Jane Curtin bit. The very first one is probably my least favorite of the night. There was a complete absence of Dick. There was a one joke sketch, and I think the wrong people were in it.
Yeah, I agree completely. And to think that they thought this is good enough to crack open the show, you know, as opening sketch material, didn't work for me at all. Best bit of the night.
My favorites were Dick as the shill, the correspondence course. Dick really did it for me, but I mean that's really hard for me to say because Belushi just really shined in those insurance commercials. I thought it's funny though because they're both basically the same format, so that's a tough call for me. But I guess if I had to choose, I would probably go with the correspondence courses.
I went with the Gary Weiss film, and it was actually his worst Gary Weiss film, except for the Christmas airport one, which we've discussed.
Yes.
But it wasn't funny. Well, it was funny, but not laugh funny. It was amusing. But that was a slight win over the Belushi H&L Brock bits. Star of the night.
Oh, star of the night. I'm gonna do it. I want to pick Dick.
Okay.
I thought he really came through when he had the material to come through with. Like in that look-alike bit, I thought his expression was great. As the pimp, I thought, the jokes weren't there, but he was into it. He was committed. He was willing to go there. I thought he brought it as a host, and I wish there was a little more for him to do.
I agree. However, I went with Belushi. The H&L Brock bits were funny. Very, very funny. He was out of his element here and did an amazing job. I kind of wish this was his element. But, I mean, that's saying that only he and Jane Curtin and Chevy Chase really had any stuff to do tonight. They kind of slept on everyone else, but I went with Belushi. Overall thoughts for me, this episode I think is by and large the worst so far. Energy was super low. It just didn't, I don't know, it was a different vibe. In the previous episode, I sort of suggested people might need a break, and they definitely do now, I think. Fortunately, as Cavett notes, they're going to be off for 2 weeks. Throughout the cast, nobody was given a hell of a lot. No one was around too much. And a lot of the time was taken up by the guests, and there were 3 musical performances. Cavett wasn't super immersed, but I don't know if it would have been within his best use of his talents for him to have been immersed. The music was great, but for me, but not great enough for me to give the show any high marks at all. I'm giving this one a 5, which is among my lower grades so far.
That's funny because I don't think we match numbers typically, but I would also give it a 5. I thought it was a passable, not unpleasant to watch episode, but nor was it. Man, did you see that Dick Cavett episode last night?
And in her, on the last recording, Dee gave it a 4.5. And the average, that makes our average 4.8.
Not great.
No. And looking at the IMDb score, which was 6.3, we are exactly in line. Our exchange rate of approximately 1.5. Yeah, I think we're right on the mark there.
I love it when we hit the exchange rate. I don't know why I find it satisfying.
Yeah, no, me too. It's really nice to be even within a small margin of error. Of the 24 shows in season 1, this episode was actually ranked 23 out of 24.
Dang.
So this is not a well-liked episode, but it definitely had its moments.
Yeah, it had its moments. But I mean, I really think, and you brought it up, the lack of the not ready for primetime players and the third song, huge Achilles heel, I think.
Our next episode will be Peter Boyle and Al Jarreau from Valentine's Day, February 14th, 1976. I'm looking forward to seeing you and Dee on the in the next episode. And this one does not have to be re-recorded, so this one is in the time.
It's already a good one.
But in the meantime, Matt and I will be trying our best to look exactly like Dick Cavett here in SNL.